Former Browns quarterback Baker Mayfield, the #1 overall pick in the 2018 draft, is packing his bags and he is headed to the Carolina Panthers.
Baker Mayfield has had one of the most interesting careers of any current starter in the league. It's been a roller coaster ride, and today we're set to cover his time in the NFL from start to finish to uncover the scary truth about Mayfield that nobody is talking about. Roller coaster of a stint with the Cleveland Browns. Heading into the 2018 NFL Draft, scouts were extremely high on Mayfield. NFL.com ranked him as the best quarterback in the draft, and he was drawing comparisons to former greats at the position like Brett Favre, Drew Brees, and Doug Flutie. The Cleveland Browns did not hesitate to select him with the first overall pick in hopes that he would finally be the one to fill the role as franchise history, something they had been desperately trying to find for decades. Being the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns is a position that countless players have held, but one that no one has particularly thrived in. However, early on, Mayfield looked like he could end up developing into that guy. He was coming into an awful situation with Cleveland going 0-16 for only the second time in NFL history. The year before that, they were only able to win a single game. If anyone was going to pull them out of this hole, it was going to be a player like Baker, someone who had spent their entire football career as an underdog and doubted from high school all the way to the NFL. Forced to prove himself time and time again as not only capable but a difference maker. He saw action for the first time in Week 3 against the New York Jets after Brian Hoyer went down with an injury. While he was unable to find the end zone in this matchup, Mayfield had a very strong debut, throwing for 201 yards while completing 73.9% of his passes. To put the cherry on top, he led the Browns to their first win in over a year. He was given the keys to the franchise for the remainder of the season and took over the starting role even when Hoyer recovered. It was clear that even with Mayfield playing at a high level for a rookie, the Browns were still far from being even playoff contenders, and there were still quite a few holes in the roster to fill. But there were flashes in which it appeared Mayfield was going to have a very promising future with the team. His best performance from his rookie year came in Week 12 when the Browns took on the Cincinnati Bengals. He was able to torch the Cincinnati secondary for 258 yards and 4 touchdowns through the air and the dominant 35-20 win. By the time the regular season came to an end, Baker had thrown for 3,725 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions with a completion percentage of 63.8%. Along with this, he led the Browns to a 7-7 record in the 14 games that he played in. He was in the running for the Offensive Rookie of the Year award, but wound up being beat out by New York Giants running back Saquon Barkley. After a very promising rookie season, Baker took a bit of a step back in the 2019 season. Heading into the year, some looked at the Browns as Super Bowl hopefuls, with the addition of Odell Beckham Jr. in the offseason. However, he was beginning to show the downsides that came along with playing a gunslinger style of football. The season got off to an awful start in which he threw 3 interceptions in a 43-13 pounding by the Tennessee Titans in the opening week of the season. This was a sign of things to come, with Mayfield only able to throw for more touchdowns than interceptions in just 5 of the 16 games he played in. The 2019 season went on to be arguably the worst year of his entire career. As a result of this fall from grace seemingly overnight, many began to doubt his abilities to truly be the savior at the quarterback position that the Browns desperately needed. By the time the regular season wrapped up, he had thrown 22 touchdowns and 21 picks, while also having a career-low 59.4% completion percentage. Despite his shortcomings, it was clear that he had a very talented supporting cast, as Cleveland was still able to finish the season with a record of 6-10. His roller coaster of his stint with the Browns continued with a high point in the 2020 season. He played much more like his rookie self rather than the player he had become the year before. Throughout the entire season, Mayfield's passes were coming off of his hand more accurately, and his decision-making had greatly improved from just the year prior. He had the Browns playing at a very high level and even led them to an 11-5 record. This earned Cleveland its first playoff appearance in 18 years. In the wildcard round, they took on a much more playoff season team in the Pittsburgh Steelers. Many believed that the Steelers would once again prove themselves as the big brothers to Cleveland, but this was far from the case. Baker completely flipped the script, throwing for 263 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions in a dominant 49-37 win. In the divisional round, they matched up against the Kansas City Chiefs. While they appeared to be heavily outmatched coming into the game, Mayfield was able to keep his team in it. In the fourth quarter, it even looked like the Browns were going to pull off what would have been the biggest upset of the playoffs that season, but when the final whistle sounded, the Chiefs sent Cleveland home by a final score of 22-17. The 2021 season was a bit of a letdown both for Mayfield and the Browns. He suffered a partially torn labrum in the team's Week 2 matchup against the Houston Texans. While he powered through and played in 14 games this season, he was forced to change his throwing motion, and it clearly had an effect on his passing ability. Despite this shoddy performance throughout the season, this gesture of pushing through the pain and continuing to play for his teammates, even through a nagging injury, once again put on display just how dedicated Mayfield was to both his teammates and the game. However, the Browns did not see it this way. Their front office believed that he was damaged goods and his time with the team came to an end after this season. Even after he left the franchise, his teammates spoke very highly of his character and how he was a great locker room guy. However, with Cleveland having their sights set on Deshaun Watson, Mayfield was traded to the Carolina Panthers for a conditional 2024 pick. Hitting rock bottom with the Carolina Panthers. Mayfield won the starting spot for the Panthers heading into the 2022 season and had a chance at a revenge game in the opening week of the season against the Cleveland Browns. While he had a solid game, throwing for 235 yards and a touchdown, the Panthers came just short of starting their season off with a win, falling by a final score of 26-24. He started in the following 4 games and was only able to pull out 1 win. His 1 touchdown to 3 picks in the final 2 games of this stretch led to him being benched for the next 5 weeks. In his final game with the Panthers, he had a 0 touchdown, 2 interception performance before once again being benched for the remainder of the season. Just 2 games following this incredibly poor showing, he was released from the team. Last chance with the Los Angeles Rams. After not being able to even hold on to his starting spot on arguably the worst team in the entire league, many began to wonder if Baker's career was doomed and he was going to go on to be an enormous bust. Shockingly, it did not take him long to find a new home, signing with the Los Angeles Rams. With the Rams, Mayfield was able to turn around the opinions of many with a masterful 2-minute drill that gave his team a win over the Oakland Raiders. He went on to throw a game-winning touchdown pass that earned him the starting spot in Los Angeles for the remainder of the year, while Matthew Stafford was sidelined with an injury. While the Rams had no hopes of making the playoffs, even if Baker played perfect football, it did give him the chance to prove to coaching staffs around the league that he was still capable of being a starting quarterback in the NFL. His best game with Los Angeles came in Week 16 when they took on the Denver Broncos. Mayfield had a strong showing through the air, throwing for 230 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions, leading the Rams offense to an elite day, culminating in a big 51-14 win, completely reviving his career with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In the offseason, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers signed Mayfield to a 1-year prove-it deal. This was the perfect situation for him. While he was forced to attempt to follow up Tom Brady, the expectations were low and he was able to bring a different energy to the locker room that was desperately needed for a Bucs team that was beginning to lose their love for the game after the high stress that comes with playing alongside the greatest of all time. Mayfield's contract was set up to where if he did not perform well, the Bucs would not sign him back, and he likely would not get another chance at being a Week 1 starter again. However, like many times in his career, when his back was against the wall, he rose to the occasion and performed at his best. He had the best season of his career in 2023, setting a career high in passing yards with 4,044, while also recording 28 passing touchdowns and a completion percentage of 64.3%. Along with this, he led the Buccaneers to a 9-8 record, earning them a spot in the playoffs. For the first time in his career, Mayfield was recognized as a Pro Bowler and had a chance to make an underdog run in the playoffs. In the first round, they took on an extremely talented Philadelphia Eagles team who was coming off of a Super Bowl appearance the year prior. But Baker not only led the Bucs to an upset, he completely dismantled the Eagles' defense for 337 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air in a dominant 32-9 win. They put the league on notice in this matchup and punched their ticket to the divisional round where they took on the Detroit Lions. While he was able to put up another great day through the air, having another 300-yard, 3-touchdown game, Tampa Bay was sent home with a 31-23 loss. what no one is noticing about Baker Mayfield. Mayfield has only continued to improve in his second season with the Bucs. He's on pace to once again set career highs across the board. Through 14 weeks, he has already thrown for 3,617 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 14 picks, with a completion percentage of 70.8%. To make these numbers even more impressive, Mayfield was without Mike Evans for a fair amount of time, and Chris Godwin had his season cut short around halfway through the year. Despite this, he has been one of the best performing quarterbacks in the league. Currently, he ranks 4th in the league in passing yards and 3rd in passing touchdowns. That brings us to the scary truth about Mayfield that no one is really talking about. He has quietly been the best quarterback in the NFC this season. This has been overshadowed simply because the Bucs have barely been able to hold on to a winning record. However, even considering all the injuries Tampa Bay has suffered this season, it is hard to pin this lack of team success on Mayfield. And with the NFC South once again being the weakest division in the NFC, there is a strong chance that they still sneak into the postseason. If he is able to keep playing at this level for a few more seasons, we're going to have to start having some very uncomfortable conversations of where Mayfield ranks in the top 10 players at the position in the whole league.